The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my corner office overlooking downtown Chicago. Vance's name appeared on my screen, and for a brief moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. Our relationship had been strained for years, reduced to obligatory holiday texts and the occasional awkward lunch. But I answered anyway. "Nadia, we need to talk about the wedding," he said, skipping any greeting. I set down my pen. "What about it?" "Ramona and I have been discussing the guest list." He paused, and I could hear the hesitation in his voice, the kind of hesitation that comes before delivering news you know will hurt. Her business associates are flying in from all over the country, very important people in the marketing world, CEOs, creative directors, the kind of crowd that what, Dad? "Look, you know Ramona's company is at a critical growth stage. First impressions matter in her industry. She needs this wedding to reflect a certain image." I leaned back in my leather chair, staring out at the skyline. "Just say it." "We think it would be best if you didn't attend. Ramona wants to keep things classy, sophisticated. Her friends are all very successful, and you're still—" He trailed off. "Still what?" "You know what I mean, Nadia. You're 32 and you rent an apartment. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You work some vague government job that you can never really explain. Ramona's friends, her colleagues, they're going to wonder why my daughter isn't more accomplished." The words hung in the air like poison. I'd heard variations of this my entire adult life. After Mom died when I was 19, Vance had remarried within 2 years to a woman named Odette, who made it abundantly clear that I was a disappointment. That marriage lasted 5 years before ending in a bitter divorce. Now, at 61, he'd found Ramona, 15 years his junior, ambitious, image-obsessed, and apparently embarrassed by my existence. "You're uninviting me from your wedding because your fiancé thinks I'll make her look bad?" I said, flatly. "Don't be dramatic. We're just trying to maintain a certain standard. You understand how important this is for Ramona's career. Her business is everything to her. This wedding is essentially a networking event. Having you there with your situation, it would raise questions." "What situation?" "Nadia, please, you're an adult. You have to understand that sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love. Ramona needs this wedding to be perfect. Her company, Prestige Marketing Group, is on the verge of major expansion. She's worked incredibly hard to build her reputation. I'm asking you to support that." I thought about the weekly calls I'd fielded from Vance over the past 3 years. The ones where he'd casually mentioned Ramona's business struggles. The ones where he'd suggested almost offhandedly that I might know someone who could provide capital. The way his voice had brightened when I told him I'd found someone willing to provide capital. "So, you want me to stay away from your wedding?" I said quietly. "The wedding that's 3 weeks away? The wedding I already bought a dress for." "I'll reimburse you for the dress. This is just how it has to be. Ramona's friends are flying in from New York, Los Angeles, Miami. These are people who matter in her world. You have to understand." "I understand perfectly, Vance." "Good. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. You've always been the understanding one, not like your brother would have been." My brother, Fletcher, the golden child who died in a car accident at 24, leaving Vance to pour all his disappointed expectations onto me, the son who could do no wrong even in death. "Is there anything else?" I asked. "No, that's it. We'll catch up after the honeymoon. Maybe we can do lunch or something." "Vance, congratulations on the wedding." I hung up without waiting for his response. For a long moment, I sat in silence, staring at my phone. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up my encrypted email. My fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. To arlo.chin@silveroakcapital.com. Subject: Immediate action required. Prestige Marketing Group. Arlo. Effective immediately, withdraw all capital from Prestige Marketing Group. Dissolve the partnership. Trigger the exit clauses and ensure all funds are returned to our holding company within 48 hours. I want every dollar out. No grace period, no negotiations. Nadia. I hit send and closed my laptop. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Arlo Chin, my investment manager and one of the few people who knew the full scope of my financial portfolio. Nadia, I just got your email. Are you sure about this? That's $2.7 million in active capital. Prestige Marketing was showing strong growth metrics. I'm sure. This will effectively collapse their expansion plans. They're leveraged pretty heavily against our backing. Without it, they'll have to... I know what it will do, Arlo. Execute the withdrawal. There was a pause. Arlo had been managing my investments for 8 years. He knew better than to question my decisions. Consider it done. The paperwork will be filed within the hour. They'll receive notification by end of business day. Thank you, Arlo. I set my phone down and returned to my quarterly reports as if nothing had happened. The story of how I became wealthy enough to casually withdraw $2.7 million isn't particularly dramatic. There was no lottery win, no inheritance from a distant relative, no lucky crypto investment. It was simply a matter of being in the right place at the right time with the right skills. After Mom died, I'd thrown myself into my studies, computer science and applied mathematics at MIT, paid for by scholarships and Mom's modest life insurance policy. Vance had been too consumed with his new wife, Odette, to pay much attention to my academic achievements. He certainly didn't notice when I graduated summa cum laude or when I was recruited by a specialized government contractor. The work was classified. Even now, I can't discuss the specifics, but I can say that I became very, very good at identifying patterns in complex data systems. And I can say that the government pays extremely well for certain types of expertise, especially when that expertise helps prevent rather large and expensive problems. By 25, I was earning more than most senior executives. By 28, I'd saved enough to start making strategic investments through a network of holding companies and trusts. By 30, my portfolio was worth $47 million. Now, at 32, I was worth somewhere north of $180 million. I still rented my apartment because I liked the building and saw no reason to deal with property maintenance. I still drove my Honda because it was reliable and I had no desire to attract attention. I still worked my government job because I found the work intellectually satisfying and it gave me purpose beyond simply accumulating wealth. My family knew none of this. To Vance, I was still Nadia the disappointment. Nadia who never quite measured up to Fletcher's memory. Nadia who worked some boring government desk job and would probably never amount to much. I'd considered telling him the truth 1,000 times, but after Odette, after watching him choose a new wife's comfort over his own daughter's feelings, I decided that some things were better kept private. I wasn't hiding my success out of shame. I was hiding it as a test. Would Vance love me for who I was, or would he only value me for what I had? With Ramona, I'd gotten my answer. 3 years ago, when Vance had started dating her, he'd been practically giddy. Ramona was successful, attractive, ambitious, everything Odette hadn't been. He'd introduced us at an uncomfortable dinner where Ramona had spent the most of the evening name-dropping her clients and discussing her company's growth trajectory. We're really at a pivotal moment. If we could just secure the right investor, someone willing to commit real capital, we could expand into 3 new markets within a year. She'd looked at me expectantly, as if I might suddenly produce a wealthy friend from my purse. That sounds exciting, I'd said blandly. Vance had jumped in. Nadia, you work in government contracting, right? Do you ever meet people with money? The kind who might be interested in investing? I took a sip of water. I might know someone.
That someone, of course, was me. Through one of my holding companies, I had structured a $2.7 million investment in Prestige Marketing Group. The terms were favorable to Ramona, generous even. Low interest, flexible repayment terms, minimal oversight requirements. Vance had been thrilled when I told him I'd found an investor willing to back Ramona's expansion. He'd hugged me for the first time in years. Ramona had been effusive in her gratitude, though she'd never bothered to ask too many questions about where the money came from. The investment had been profitable. Ramona was talented at what she did, even if she was insufferable as a person. Prestige marketing had grown substantially over the past 3 years, opening offices in 2 new cities and doubling their client roster. But business is business and family is family, and sometimes those two things can't coexist. The first domino fell at 4:47 p.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Vance. "Nadia, did you tell Ramona's investor something? She just got a call and she's losing her mind." I didn't respond. At 5:15 p.m., another text. "This isn't funny. Ramona's business is in serious trouble. Her backer is pulling out. Do you know anything about this?" I muted his conversation thread. At 6:30 p.m., my office phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Nadia Anderson?" A woman's voice, tight with barely controlled panic. "This is Ramona Westfield, your father's fiancée. We need to talk, now." "About what?" "Don't play games with me. My CFO just received notice that our primary investor is withdrawing $2.7 million in active capital, effective immediately. We're scrambling to understand how this happened and who approved this. Your father seems to think you might know something about it." I leaned back in my chair, watching the sunset over Chicago's skyline. "Why would I know anything about your business arrangements, Ramona?" "Because you were the one who found the investor 3 years ago. You connected us. You have to know who they are." "I knew someone who was interested in investing. That's all." "That's all?" Her voice rose sharply. "That's all? Do you have any idea what you've done? This withdrawal will torpedo our expansion. We've already committed to new office leases, hired staff, signed client contracts based on having this capital available. Without it, we're going to—" She stopped abruptly. "I need you to contact this investor. Tell them there's been a mistake. Tell them we'll renegotiate terms if necessary." "I don't think they're interested in negotiations." "You don't think? Nadia, this is my company. We're talking about my life's work. You need to fix this." "I don't need to do anything, Ramona." Silence stretched between us. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. "This is about the wedding, isn't it? You're doing this because we uninvited you." "That's an interesting theory." "You petty, vindictive little—" She caught herself. "Your father was right about you. He said you never accomplished anything, and now I see why. You tear other people down because you can't build anything yourself." I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Is there anything else, Ramona?" "You're going to regret this. When my lawyer finds out who this investor is, when we trace these funds, you're going to wish you'd never—" I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing again. Vance's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then Ramona's number. Voicemail. Vance again. Voicemail. Finally, I turned off my phone, packed up my briefcase, and went home. The voicemails piled up overnight. By morning, I had 17 messages. I listened to them over coffee in my apartment, each one more desperate than the last. Vance's first message: "Nadia, please call me back. Ramona is beside herself. Whatever's happening with her investor, we need to figure this out. She's talking about postponing the wedding." His third message: "I don't understand what's going on. Ramona's lawyer says the investment was structured through something called Silver Oak Capital Management. That name means nothing to me. Nadia, please, if you know these people, help us." His seventh message: "Ramona showed me the withdrawal notice. It's signed by someone named Arlo Chin. Do you know him? Nadia, please, I'm begging you. This wedding is in 3 weeks. Ramona's company is falling apart. I need you to help fix this." His 15th message, timestamped at 2:47 a.m., was, "I know you're angry about the wedding invitation. I understand, but this is bigger than that. Ramona's worked her entire adult life to build this company. You can't let it collapse because of a family disagreement. That's not who you are." I deleted all the messages and went to work. The next 2 days passed in a blur of increasingly frantic contact attempts. Vance showed up at my apartment building, but the doorman turned him away when I instructed him I wasn't receiving visitors. Ramona tried to reach me through my work email, which I blocked. Vance's sister, my Aunt Marlo, called to lecture me about family loyalty. "I don't know what's going on between you and your father," she said, "but Ramona is collateral damage here. Her business doesn't deserve to be destroyed because of a family spat." "I agree," I said. "Businesses shouldn't be destroyed because of family issues. People shouldn't be uninvited from weddings because they're considered an embarrassment either." "Wait, they uninvited you from the wedding? Ask Vance about it." I hung up. By day 4, the story had apparently spread through the family. My phone lit up with calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all wanting to know what had happened and why I was sabotaging Ramona's business. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, none of them had cared about my life, my accomplishments, or my feelings. Now, suddenly, I was important enough to warrant family-wide intervention. On day 5, everything changed. I was in a meeting with my government team when my personal cell phone buzzed with a text from Arlo. "Your father and Ramona just showed up at the Silver Oak offices. Security has them in the lobby. They're demanding to meet with the principal investor in Prestige Marketing Group. What do you want me to do?" I excused myself from the meeting and called him. "How did they find the office?" I asked. "The withdrawal notice had our corporate address. They hired a private investigator who tracked the LLC structure. They're threatening legal action if we don't meet with them." I checked my watch. 2:30 p.m. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't engage until I arrive." "You're coming here?" "Time to end this, Arlo." I grabbed my briefcase and left the building. Silver Oak Capital Management occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower in Chicago's financial district. The offices were understated but elegant. Dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Lake Michigan. It was the kind of place that whispered money rather than shouting it. When I stepped off the elevator, I could hear Ramona's voice echoing through the marble lobby. "This is absurd. You can't just refuse to meet with us. We have contractual relationship with your firm. We have rights." The security guard stood impassively by the reception desk. "Ma'am, as I've explained, no one from our investment team is available without an appointment." "Then get us an appointment, today, right now." Vance stood beside her, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen him. He wore a suit that was slightly rumpled and his tie was askew. He noticed me before Ramona did. "Nadia?" He blinked, confused. "What are you doing here?" Ramona spun around. "Did you follow us? How did you—" "I work here," I said simply. The lobby went silent. "You work here?" Vance repeated slowly. "At an investment firm?" "Not exactly." I turned to the security guard. "Thank you, David. I'll take it from here." I walked past them toward the secured door that led to the main offices. I pressed my palm against the biometric scanner, and the lock disengaged with a soft click. "Nadia, wait," Vance said. "I don't understand. What is this place? Why are you—" "Would you like to come inside and talk, or would you prefer to continue shouting in the lobby?" They followed me through the door, down a hallway lined with offices, to the corner suite at the end. The nameplate beside the door read, "Nadia J. Anderson, Principal Partner." Ramona saw it first. Her face went white. "That can't be." I unlocked the door and gestured for them to enter. My office was larger than my apartment. One wall was entirely glass, offering an unobstructed view of the Chicago skyline and Lake Michigan beyond. The other walls held framed credentials, my MIT degrees, several commendations from government agencies with portions redacted for security classification, and a Forbes 30 Under 30 feature from 2 years ago that Vance had apparently never seen. On my desk sat a single photograph, Mom, smiling, from the year before she died. Vance stood in the doorway, staring. Nadia, I don't understand." "Sit down, Vance. You too, Ramona." They sank into the chairs across from my desk like sleepwalkers. I remained standing, silhouetted against the window. 3 years ago, I began, Vance mentioned that Ramona needed an investor for her business expansion. I agreed to help. Through this firm, through a structure of LLCs and holding companies, I personally invested $2.7 million in Prestige Marketing Group. Ramona's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The terms were generous: minimal interest, flexible repayment, almost no operational oversight. I wanted the business to succeed. I wanted you to be happy, Vance. You? He shook his head. But how? You're a government employee. You drive a Honda. You rent an apartment. Where would you get $2.7 million? I've been doing specialized consulting work since I was 23. My particular skills are valuable to certain agencies. Very valuable. Over the years, I invested wisely. This firm manages my portfolio, along with several others. Current assets under management, approximately $180 million. My personal net worth is in the same range. The silence that followed was absolute. Ramona found her voice first. You're lying. This is some kind of scam. You're not worth $180 million? That's impossible. I pulled open a desk drawer and removed a leather portfolio. From it, I extracted several documents and laid them on the desk. Bank statements from 3 different institutions, investment summaries, property holdings, yes, plural, I own 4 properties across 3 states that I rent out, stock portfolios, government contract summaries, redacted for classification but showing payment amounts. Vance reached for the papers with a shaking hand. His eyes moved across the numbers, disbelieving. This is real. This is actually real. It's real, Vance. But why didn't you ever tell me? Because I wanted to know if you'd love me for who I was, not what I had. I met his eyes, and I got my answer on Tuesday when you called to uninvite me from your wedding. The words landed like a physical blow. Vance flinched. Nadia, I didn't mean it like that. You said Ramona wanted to keep things classy, that her business friends would wonder why your daughter wasn't more accomplished. You said I'd raise questions because of my situation. I was trying to protect Ramona's reputation. Her business was everything. Her business that I was funding. My voice remained calm, but each word was precise, surgical. The business that wouldn't exist in its current form without my money. The expansion into Atlanta and Denver, my capital. The new office renovations, my capital. The marketing campaign that landed 3 Fortune 500 clients, my capital. Ramona had gone from white to gray. You can't pull that investment. We have a contract. We have rights. I picked up another document from my desk. Actually, according to Section 14.3 of our investment agreement, I can withdraw funding immediately if certain conditions are met, specifically if there's a material change in the business relationship or if I determine that continued investment no longer aligns with my portfolio strategy. That's a technicality, Ramona snapped. Every court would uphold it. My lawyers wrote that contract. Your lawyers signed it. You were so excited to get the funding that you barely read the terms. Vance stood up abruptly. Nadia, please, let's talk about this rationally. The wedding invitation, we can change that. You can come. Of course you can come. I don't want to come anymore, Vance. Then what do you want? Money? We can pay you back the investment over time. We'll restructure. I don't want your money. I walked to the window, looking out over the city. I wanted a father who valued me. I wanted to be invited to his wedding, not because I'm secretly wealthy, but because I'm his daughter. I wanted to matter. You do matter. Vance's voice cracked. Nadia, you've always mattered. I turned to face him. Did I? When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you asked about my life, my work, my happiness? You only called when you needed something, when Ramona needed an investor, when you wanted advice on Odette's divorce settlement, when you needed someone to listen to your problems. That's not fair. I've been dealing with a lot. The divorce, rebuilding my life, finding Ramona. And I've been building an empire, alone. The words came out harder than I intended. Do you know what it's like to achieve something remarkable and have no one to share it with? To make your first million and realize that telling your only living parent would just make them see you differently. Not better, just differently. You should have told me, Vance said quietly. I'm your father. I deserve to know. Did you? Would it have changed anything? Would you have suddenly become interested in my life? Or would you have just started asking for money? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Ramona stood up, her composure finally shattering. This is insane. You're punishing an entire business, people who depend on their jobs because your feelings were hurt? I'm withdrawing my investment from a business whose owner publicly considers me an embarrassment. That's not punishment. That's just good business sense. You're destroying me. Do you understand that? Without this capital, I'll have to lay off 30 people. I'll have to cancel contracts. My reputation in the industry will be ruined. Your reputation was more important than my feelings when you decided I wasn't classy enough for your wedding, I said calmly. I'm simply applying the same logic. Nadia, please. Vance stepped toward me. I know I've been a terrible father. I know I've let you down more times than I can count. But don't do this to Ramona. She doesn't deserve this. Did I deserve to be uninvited from my father's wedding? No. No, you didn't. You deserved better. You've always deserved better, and I failed you. Tears were running down his face now. After your mom died, I fell apart. I know I did. I was so lost in my own grief that I forgot you were grieving too. And then Odette and all the drama with that marriage, and I let you slip away. I let years pass without really seeing you. And now you see me because I have money. Now I see you because I'm finally looking, really looking, and what I see is an incredible woman who accomplished everything on her own, without any help from me. I see someone strong and brilliant and successful, and I realize that I had nothing to do with any of it. You did this yourself, Nadia, and instead of being proud, instead of celebrating you, He broke down completely. I told you not to come to my wedding. I stood very still, watching my father cry. Somewhere inside me, something shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but something softer than the cold anger I'd been carrying. The money is withdrawn, I said quietly. That decision stands. But, Ramona, I'll give you 30 days to find alternative funding. I'll have Arlo draw up a bridge loan with reasonable terms to cover your immediate obligations. After 30 days, you're on your own. Ramona sagged with relief. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for your employees who don't deserve to suffer because of this situation. I turned to Vance. As for the wedding, I meant what I said. I won't be attending. I understand. He wiped his eyes. Nadia, I know I can't fix everything with one conversation, but I want to try. I want to be a real father to you, if you'll let me. That's going to take time, Vance. A lot of time. I know. I'll wait as long as it takes. They left my office 20 minutes later with a promissory note for a bridge loan and the names of 3 potential alternative investors Arlo had identified. Ramona's business would survive, though it would take her years to rebuild to the same growth trajectory.
The wedding was postponed. Vance called it off entirely 2 weeks later. It didn't feel right, he told me in a voicemail. Getting married while my relationship with my daughter is broken. Ramona understood. We're still engaged, but we're waiting, taking time to figure things out. Aunt Marlowe called to apologize. Apparently, Vance had told the whole family what happened. Several other relatives reached out, some apologetic, some just curious about my success. I ignored most of them. 3 months later, Vance started showing up outside my apartment building every Sunday morning with coffee and bagels. He never came up, never pushed. He just stood in the lobby until I came down, handed me a coffee, and asked if I wanted to take a walk. The first 2 Sundays, I took the coffee and went back upstairs without a word. The 3rd Sunday, I walked with him for 10 minutes. The 4th Sunday, we walked for half an hour and talked about Mom. Really talked, for the first time since she died. By the 6th Sunday, it became a routine.
It's been 8 months now. Vance and I have coffee every Sunday. We talk about work. He finally understands what I do, or at least as much as I can tell him given the classifications. We talk about Mom and Fletcher and all the years we lost. We talk about Ramona, who broke off their engagement after realizing that Vance's priorities had shifted. She said I was choosing you over her, Vance told me one Sunday. And she was right. I was. I should have chosen you 13 years ago. We're not fixed. 13 years of distance and disappointment can't be healed in 8 months. But we're trying. That's something. Last week, Vance asked if I'd have dinner with him on what would have been Mom's birthday. We went to her favorite restaurant, the one that closed down years ago and reopened under new ownership. We ordered her favorite dish and told stories and laughed and cried. At the end of the night, as we stood outside the restaurant, Vance hugged me, a real hug, tight and long, the kind I hadn't gotten since I was a child. "I'm so proud of you, Nadia," he whispered. "Your mom would be so proud. I'm sorry it took me so long to say that." I hugged him back. "I know, Vance, I know. I still rent my apartment, I still drive my Honda, I still work my government job. But now when Vance calls, it's not because he needs something. It's just to talk, to ask about my day, to tell me about his. Last month, he asked if I'd be willing to meet someone he'd started seeing. Her name is Imogen. She's a retired teacher. No business empire, no social climbing, just a kind woman who makes him laugh. I'd like you to meet her, only if you're comfortable." I met Imogen last week. She's nothing like Odette or Ramona. She asked about my work, listened when I answered, and didn't once treat me like a disappointment or an ATM. When Vance mentioned I'd gone to MIT, she smiled and said, "You must have gotten your intelligence from your mother. Your dad's brilliant in his own way, but he couldn't program a microwave." Vance laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard since before Mom died. I'm still learning to trust him again. Some wounds take years to heal, and some scars never fully fade. But every Sunday morning when I see him waiting in my lobby with coffee and that hopeful expression on his face, I remember that people can change. Sometimes they just need the right motivation.